The night I left home, the air felt heavier than usual, like the whole world was pressing on my chest. I didn't slam any doors, I didn't shout, and I didn't even tell my sister goodbye. I just quietly slipped out with one small bag and a heart full of questions. I didn't know where I was going or what my life would look like, but I knew I couldn't stay another day in a house where I felt invisible. As I walked down the street, I kept checking my phone, hoping maybe someone would call, maybe someone would ask where I was or why I left. But there was nothing, not even a missed notification. It was as if the moment I stepped out, I had already been erased. The first message I received that night wasn't from family. It wasn't concern or worry. It was a notification from my sister's social media. She had posted a picture, laughing, glowing, surrounded by friends. And the caption hit me like a brick, "Finally living my best life." I stared at the screen, trying to understand if it was a coincidence or if she really meant it as a response to my silence. The timing felt too sharp, too perfect, too painful. How could she be posting something like that right when I was walking away from everything? I remember standing under a streetlight, the cold wind brushing past me, thinking, maybe she really wanted me gone. That moment stayed with me for years, like a small wound that refused to heal. I kept replaying it in my mind, her smile, her words, the feeling of being replaced before I was even gone. And yet, that small pain became the spark that pushed me forward. I had nothing to my name, no plan, no money, not even a real idea of what I wanted to be. But I had one thing, this strange mix of heartbreak and determination. I was tired of depending on people who didn't value me. I wanted to prove, even if only to myself, that I could survive, that I could build something, that my life had meaning beyond the walls I grew up in. In the beginning, survival was all I thought about. I took small jobs, anything I could find. I slept in cramped rooms, shared spaces, sometimes even on couches offered by people who barely knew me. There were days when I questioned everything. Why I left, why nobody reached out, why the people closest to me seemed perfectly okay without me. But somewhere along that difficult path, I discovered something I never expected, a quiet strength I didn't know I had. I realized I could work hard, think smart, and move forward even when I had nothing. That realization changed everything. I started learning skills that could help me earn more than a daily wage. I watched videos, took online courses, read books people threw away. I taught myself things I never imagined I would understand. And slowly I started seeing progress. Tiny steps at first, like earning enough to stop worrying about food, then saving a little, then getting better opportunities. Even during those early victories, I kept thinking of that night. I kept remembering the caption, "Finally living my best life." For some reason, it stayed in the back of my mind like a challenge, like a reminder of where I came from and what I had to overcome. 5 years passed like a blur. 5 years of working in silence, grinding when no one was watching, staying focused while people doubted me or forgot about me entirely. And then one morning I looked at my bank account and realized something unbelievable. I was officially a millionaire. It didn't happen with luck or magic. It happened through slow, steady building, one idea, one project, one risk at a time. And the first person I thought about wasn't myself. It was my sister. I wondered if she had changed in those 5 years. I wondered if she remembered that night or if it had meant nothing to her. I wondered if she still posted those smiling pictures with captions that made my chest tighten. A part of me wanted to show her who I had become, to stand in front of her and prove my worth. But another part of me hesitated. What if she didn't care? What if returning meant reopening wounds I had spent years trying to close? But life has a strange way of bringing things full circle. Just when I thought I was done with the past, something unexpected happened. Something small but powerful enough to make every memory rush back. One evening, as I sat in my apartment reviewing a business proposal, I received a message. It wasn't from a client, not from a partner, not from anyone I expected. It was a name I hadn't seen pop up on my screen in years. My sister. The message wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was just 4 simple words. "Are you coming home?" My heart paused. After 5 years of silence, 5 years of living separate lives, 5 years of questions hanging in the air, she finally reached out. But the tone felt different, not proud, not distant, almost uncertain. Like she wasn't sure if she even had the right to ask me that. I stared at that message for a long time, thinking of everything that had happened since the night I walked away. The struggles, the small victories, the loneliness, the growth, the transformation. I thought about the version of myself she last saw, a quiet, tired soul carrying the weight of feeling unwanted. And then I thought about who I was now. Confident, successful, self-made, someone who had rewritten their entire life from scratch. 1,000 questions circled in my head. Why now? What did she want? What changed after all these years? And why did I feel that old ache in my chest like a wound reopening? I typed a reply, then deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Because no matter how successful I had become, I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure if returning home meant closure or another heartbreak. But something told me this message was just the beginning of a story I thought was already finished. And the real reason she reached out? The truth behind it? That's the part you won't believe. Because what she said next changed everything. I kept staring at my phone long after the screen dimmed, as if the message would somehow change on its own. Are you coming home? It didn't explain anything. It didn't tell me why she suddenly cared after 5 long years. It didn't say if something was wrong or if she just wanted to see me. And that uncertainty pulled me straight back into the past, back to the version of myself who used to wait for her to include me, notice me, or even just treat me like more than a shadow in our own house. I didn't want to feel that way again, but her message opened a door I thought I had locked and thrown away the key to. Before I could even think of replying, another message appeared. This time it wasn't words. It was a picture. A blurry photo taken in low light, maybe from her room or maybe somewhere else inside the house. At first glance, it didn't look like anything special. Just a wall, a window, and the edge of a table. But then I noticed something on the table, a small wooden box that looked strangely familiar. Not because it was part of the house, but because I recognized it from years ago. It was the box our mother had kept hidden, the one she always told us not to touch, not to open, not to ask about. Back then I thought it was just a silly rule, maybe something sentimental. But one day when I was about 12, I caught my mother crying while holding that same box, whispering something under her breath. I never asked her about it after that. Why would my sister send me that picture after all these years? Why show me the one object that connected us to a secret nobody ever talked about? My chest tightened. Was that her way of saying something was wrong? Or was she trying to remind me of something I had forgotten? I zoomed in on the picture, trying to catch details, searching for clues, but everything just looked more confusing the closer I looked. I wanted to call her right away, but the past had trained me to move carefully around her, like walking through a room full of glass. One wrong step and everything could break again. Instead, I put the phone down and leaned back on the chair. My apartment felt too quiet, too modern, too clean compared to the chaos of the memories pulling me backward. I had spent 5 years building a new life, a life where people respected me, where I made decisions confidently, where I was no longer the silent one in the background. But even with all that, one message from her could shake my entire foundation. It made me think about the last few months before I left home. Things weren't just tense, they were strange. My sister had been distant, almost unpredictable. One day she would talk to me like everything was normal, and the next she would act like I didn't exist. I used to think it was just sibling stuff or maybe stress from school, but looking back now, there were moments when she seemed almost afraid of something. She would stay up late, whispering on the phone, and whenever I walked into the room she would quickly end the call. Sometimes she would lock her door and stay inside for hours, and when she came out, her eyes would look tired, like she had been awake all night worrying. I tried to ask her once what was going on. She didn't yell or push me away. She just smiled, a strange, uncomfortable smile, and said, "You wouldn't understand." And then she closed her door again. That night was the first time I felt like the family I knew was slipping away piece by piece. The picture she sent now, of that wooden box, felt like a link to the version of her from those days. The version who was carrying something heavy but never said a word. And it bothered me that after 5 years of silence, this was how she reached out. I picked up the phone again, my hands slightly trembling, and typed a simple message, "Why are you sending me this?" But before I could hit send, I stopped. What if she didn't reply? What if asking directly scared her away? What if something urgent was happening and she couldn't explain yet? I deleted the message again. Instead, I typed something else. "Is everything okay?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before pressing send. My heart felt tight, like I was 13 again, waiting for her to include me. I hated that feeling, but I couldn't help it. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20. No answer. I kept pacing around the room, my mind replaying pieces of our old life. The arguments in the house. Our mother's silence. The way my sister had slowly changed right before everything fell apart. Back then, I thought I was the only one struggling. Now I wasn't so sure. Finally, just when I was about to give up and force myself to sleep, my phone buzzed. My breath caught as I grabbed it. She had replied, but the message was even more confusing than the last. "I can't explain here. You need to come. It's about you." About me? That didn't make sense. What could possibly be about me after all this time? I felt a strange shiver run down my arms. My past had been quiet since I left, not because everything was solved, but because I never looked back. I didn't think anything from that house could still affect me, especially now. But her words pulled me into a place I thought I had outgrown. I asked myself a question I hadn't allowed myself to think in years. What if the problem wasn't just family drama? What if something happened back then that I didn't know about, something that caused her strange behavior, something connected to the box in the picture? My mind wandered deeper into memories I usually avoided. I remembered hearing my parents arguing late at night, whispers at first, then louder voices, and then silence. I remembered my mother locking her bedroom for days. I remembered my father leaving the house early and coming back late, avoiding conversations. And I remembered my sister spending long hours staring at that same wooden box, her fingers tracing the edges like she was afraid to open it but even more afraid to leave it alone. All these signs had been there, but I was too young, too lost in my own struggles to notice what they meant. Now everything seemed connected. I walked to the window and looked outside. The city lights sparkled below, cars moving like tiny stars across the road. From up here life looked peaceful, controlled, simple. But inside me something was shifting. A feeling I couldn't name. A mix of fear, curiosity, and something deeper. Something like destiny pulling me back to the place I fought so hard to escape. My phone buzzed again. Another message from her. Please don't ignore this. If you don't come now, it might be too late. Too late for what? Too late for who? The words repeated in my mind like an echo I couldn't silence. My hand hovered over the screen, unsure if I should reply or pack a bag or pretend none of this was happening. But even as I stood frozen, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever waited for me back home. It wasn't just family. It wasn't just memories. It was a truth I had been running from without even knowing it. And now it was coming back for me. But the message she sent next, that was the one that made my heart stop completely. The next message came so quickly that it almost blended with the vibration of my phone. I stared at the screen, and for a moment I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It was just 2 words this time, 2 short, simple words that somehow felt heavier than anything she had said so far. She wrote, "He knows." I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just froze, my fingers tightening around the phone. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he knew. But the way she wrote it, the urgency, the fear behind those words, it hit me in a place deeper than logic. It felt like something from our past had finally caught up, something I never realized existed. My whole body reacted before my mind did, like some old instinct waking up after years of silence. For a few seconds I just stood there, the room around me fading out. I kept thinking back to our childhood, trying to match her message with a memory, a name, a face, anything. But everything felt foggy. The only thing that stood out was that wooden box she sent in the picture. I suddenly remembered a night years ago when I walked past my parents' room and saw the door slightly open. The box was sitting on the floor like someone had dropped it in a hurry. My mother was on her knees, picking up papers and putting them back inside while whispering something that sounded like a prayer. I tried to step closer, but my father appeared in the hallway and stopped me with a look I couldn't forget. A look that told me I had seen something I wasn't supposed to. At the time, I didn't understand any of it. I thought it was just family stress or maybe something private between the adults. But now, with my sister's messages echoing in my mind, it didn't feel like normal family secrets anymore. It felt bigger, heavier, like something hidden for years that was finally cracking open. I typed back, "Who is he?" and waited. The 3 little dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. She was typing, deleting, typing again. As if she was fighting with herself about what to say. Finally her message came through, "I can't tell you. Not here. Not on the phone." I felt frustration rise inside me, but I also felt something else. Fear. Not the kind that makes you jump. The kind that sinks slowly into your chest, making it hard to breathe. I knew this wasn't about something simple. Not after 5 years of silence. Not after the box. Not after he knows. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, but my hand was shaking so much I had to put it down before spilling it. My mind kept circling the same questions. Why now? What changed? And what exactly was my sister afraid of? She was strong, louder than me, tougher than me. She never backed down from anything. For her to send messages like this, something serious had to be happening. I sat down at the table and tried to think logically. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe I was letting old wounds cloud my judgment. But something deep inside told me this wasn't just about emotions or family drama. The clues were too strange. The timing too sharp. Her words too heavy. As I tried to calm my breathing, another memory rose up, one I hadn't thought about in years. It was the day my father suddenly told us we weren't allowed in the storage room anymore. He changed the lock. He put a chair against the door for extra measure. But one afternoon when he forgot to lock it after leaving, my sister and I slipped inside. It was dark and dusty, filled with old boxes and broken furniture. But on the top shelf was a small metal drawer with my name written on the side in my mother's handwriting. I had reached up to open it, but before I could, my sister grabbed my hand and whispered, "Don't." Her voice trembled. I had never heard her sound that scared. I asked why, but she just shook her head and pulled me out of the room, closing the door behind us. I didn't realize until now how odd that moment was. Why would something with my name on it make her afraid? Why did she pull me away instead of letting me open it? I looked back at my phone again, at her messages, and the puzzle pieces started to feel closer together, though the picture was still blurred. I messaged her again, "Just tell me one thing. Am I in danger?" This time she replied instantly, "Not yet. But you will be if you stay away." The words slammed into me like a sudden cold wind. She wanted me to come home? For protection? That didn't make sense. I had money now. Security. A stable life. Everything I needed to stay safe. What danger could possibly reach me here? And why would going back to the place filled with old secrets, be safer? I tried calling her. I couldn't wait anymore. The ringing started once, twice, 3 times. I expected her to decline the call, like she used to do whenever she wanted distance. But this time the ringing stopped, and for the first time in years I heard her voice. Except, she wasn't speaking to me. She was whispering to someone else. Her voice was low, shaky. I only caught a few words. "I told you, no, not yet, he doesn't know." My heart dropped. I pulled the phone closer to my ear. "Hello? Can you hear me?" I asked. Then the whispering stopped. Silence. A few seconds later, the call disconnected. I stared at the screen again. Why didn't she speak to me? Who was she talking to? And why did it sound like she didn't want me to hear? I waited for her to message again. Minutes passed. Then half an hour. Then an hour. Nothing. The quiet started pressing on me again, the same way it had the night I left home. Except now the silence wasn't empty, it was filled with questions, warnings, secrets. I knew I couldn't sleep, not with my mind racing like this. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked around the apartment, trying to calm the storm inside me. And then another thought hit me, something I hadn't considered at all. What if my sister wasn't the only one sending messages? What if someone else had access to her phone? What if the person she whispered to wasn't a friend, but the same he she was warning me about? Suddenly the picture of the wooden box felt more like a signal than a memory. A signal from someone who might not be allowed to speak freely. Someone who wanted me to see something without saying it. But what was inside that box? And why did it matter now, after all these years? The questions kept piling up, crowding my mind until the only clear thing left was the feeling that the past was no longer staying in the past. Something was moving. Something was shifting. Something was coming. And I didn't know if I was ready for it. But the next message finally came. And this one didn't come from my sister's number. The new message flashed on my screen before I even had time to breathe. It came from an unknown number. No name, no picture, nothing to identify who it belonged to. At first, I thought it might be a wrong number, just some random text. But as soon as I opened it, all doubt disappeared. The message said, "Stop asking questions. She already told you too much." My stomach dropped. It felt like the floor under me shifted. Someone was watching. Someone knew I had been talking to her. Someone was controlling what she could say. And whoever it was, they knew exactly how to hit where it hurt. My whole body tensed, every instinct telling me that this wasn't a game between siblings anymore. This was something bigger, something that had been building in the shadows for years. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust responding. I couldn't trust silence either. I just kept staring at those words, each one cutting a little deeper. I checked the number again, hoping to see some clue, an area code, a familiar pattern, anything. But it was nothing. Completely untraceable. Without thinking, I grabbed my jacket and keys. I needed air, space, something to quiet the noise inside my head. I stepped outside onto the balcony and looked down at the city. Cars moving, lights glowing, streets alive with people who had no idea how someone's entire world could collapse with one message. The breeze felt colder than usual, almost sharp. Like even the night was warning me. I tried calling my sister again, but her phone went straight to voicemail this time. The ringing didn't even happen. It jumped straight to the automated voice. Either her phone was dead, or someone turned it off. 1,000 possibilities ran through my mind, each worse than the last. What if the person messaging me had her phone? What if she wasn't safe? What if she reached out only because she was desperate? And what if the secret she never told me was the same thing that forced her into silence now? I walked back inside and tried to steady my breathing. I needed to think clearly. I needed to connect the dots that I had been ignoring for years. The wooden box. My mother crying. My father's strict rules. My sister's fear. The storage room. The metal drawer with my name. And now, messages from someone who shouldn't know anything. I sat down on the edge of the bed and grabbed my notebook. The one where I wrote down ideas, plans, thoughts. This time, I used it to map out the memories. One by one, I wrote the strange events we never talked about. The patterns were obvious now. All of those things pointed to something hidden about me. Something that was never meant to be uncovered. Something my parents tried to protect or maybe hide. Something my sister had carried alone after I left. Then another message arrived from the unknown number. My hand tightened before I even opened it. This one said, "If you go home, you won't leave again." It felt like someone reached inside my chest and crushed my heart. Not because of the words alone, but because of what they implied. They weren't trying to scare me away, they were warning me of a trap. Or maybe they were the trap. I didn't know who to believe. My sister telling me to come home for safety, or the number telling me that going back would be a mistake. The confusion twisted inside me, and for the first time in years, I felt that same helplessness I felt the night I walked out of that house. But this time I wasn't the same person. I wasn't weak. I wasn't dependent. And I wasn't going to run away from the truth, no matter how dark it was. I called one of the few people I trusted, my childhood friend Sam. He picked up on the second ring, his voice calm as always. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to make him understand I needed help. He listened quietly as I explained the messages, the box, my sister's strange behavior. When I finished, he didn't laugh or say I was overthinking. He was serious. "Someone doesn't want you going home," he said. "And someone else is terrified that you won't." The words made everything more real. I asked him what he thought I should do, and he didn't hesitate. "Before you travel anywhere, check the house first. Not by going inside. Look from the outside. Watch who goes in and out. See if something feels off." It was smart. Careful. And it was the first idea that didn't make me feel like I was walking blindfolded. I thanked him and hung up, but before I could even set my phone down, I received a new message. This time from my sister. Her message was short, shaky, like she typed it fast or with trembling hands. She wrote, "Don't trust anyone. Come alone." Before I could reply, another message followed, "And whatever you do, don't look in the drawer." My heart froze. She remembered the storage room. She remembered the drawer with my name. She remembered the moment she pulled me away. But why tell me now? Why warn me? I tried calling her again, no answer. I sat there in silence for a long moment, replaying her words. Don't look in the drawer. Why not? What could possibly be inside something that's been locked away for so many years? Then the unknown number messaged again. She's lying. My pulse jumped. Both sides were pushing. Both sides were saying the opposite. Both sides were telling me what to fear. I stared at the two messages side by side, my mind spiraling. My sister saying don't trust anyone. The unknown number saying she's lying. It felt like I was being pulled into a storm with no sense of direction. And every step, every choice could lead me closer to danger. I paced the room trying to decide what to do next. And that was when I saw something that made my entire body go cold. It was a notification from my home security system. Motion detected at my front door. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't near the door. And I definitely wasn't ready for visitors. Slowly, carefully, I walked toward the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But the camera notification was real. Someone had been there. I checked the camera feed and what I saw made my knees weaken. A man dressed in black had stood at my door for almost 30 seconds, silent, unmoving, before walking away. I didn't recognize him. His face was hidden by a cap. But he was watching. Waiting. Checking to see if I was home. My phone buzzed again. This time no words. Just a single image. A picture of my apartment door. Taken from the hallway. Taken just moments ago. Someone was right outside. Someone knew where I lived. Someone knew I was getting too close to the truth. And then one final message appeared from the unknown number. You're running out of time. I didn't move. My phone was still in my hand, my breath caught somewhere in my chest, and my eyes glued to that photo of my own apartment door. Whoever took it was close. Close enough to hear me if I made a sound, close enough to know exactly where I lived, close enough to prove this wasn't just a family mystery anymore. This was real danger inches away from me. I stepped back from the door, slow and silent, every muscle tight. I didn't know if he was still standing in the hallway or if he had walked away already. I didn't know if he was waiting around the corner or watching from somewhere I couldn't see. My mind raced, weighing every possibility, every risk. For the first time since all of this began, I realized I wasn't just dealing with secrets. I was dealing with someone who wanted me to stay confused and afraid. But before I could even gather my thoughts, another message pinged on my phone. My heart jumped again, expecting it to be the unknown number. But it wasn't. It was my sister. Her message was just one line, but it hit harder than everything before it. She wrote, "He's not after you, he's after the box." My legs weakened. The box again. The box from the picture. The same box my mother cried over. The same box my father guarded like a treasure or a threat. The same box that held something tied to me, something powerful enough to pull strangers to my door. I typed back immediately, my fingers shaking, "What's in the box? Tell me now." No response. I tried calling her again. This time the call rang once, then stopped. Cut off abruptly. As if someone pressed the end button for her. My mind spiraled deeper. If the person outside my door wasn't after me, then why send threatening messages? Why say you're running out of time? Unless the unknown number wasn't the same person who came to my door. Unless there were two sides here, each trying to control what I knew, each trying to influence my next move. For the first time, the idea hit me like a shock. Maybe my sister wasn't warning me about one person. Maybe she was warning me about two. I backed away from the entrance and checked the security camera feed again. The man in black was gone, but something else caught my eye, something I had missed the first time. After he walked away, another figure appeared at the end of the hallway. A shorter silhouette, also wearing dark clothes, watching silently from a distance. The two never crossed paths. They were there at different times. But they were both watching my door. Two people. Two agendas. Two threats. And in the middle of all that, the box. My phone buzzed again, making me flinch. This time it wasn't a message. It was a video call. And the name that appeared on the screen made my entire chest lock up. That. I hadn't heard from him in 5 years. He was the quiet one, the man who kept his emotions sealed behind a calm face. Seeing his name now, after everything, felt unreal. I hesitated, but I accepted the call. When the screen lit up, the first thing I saw was darkness. Then slowly the image cleared, showing my father's face. Older, more tired, and holding a kind of worry I had never seen on him before. He wasn't calling to catch up. He wasn't calling because he missed me. He was calling because he knew something was happening. He spoke before I could say a word. "You need to listen carefully. Don't let anyone into your apartment. Don't answer any unknown messages. And do not, under any circumstances, go near the house tonight." I stared at him, stunned. "What? What's going on?" I asked. He shook his head. "There are things you don't understand. Things we kept from you for a reason." My frustration grew. "Then tell me." "I don't know who to trust. I don't know what's happening. People are coming to my door, messaging me, threatening me. Why? What's in that box?" He closed his eyes for a moment, like he was deciding whether to finally reveal the truth. When he opened them again, his voice was low, steady, and filled with something that almost sounded like fear. But before he could speak, the screen glitched. The call froze. Then cut off. My phone flashed, connection lost. I tried calling back. It didn't go through. I messaged him. No response. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing hard, my mind trying to catch up with everything unfolding at once. My father knew something. My sister was trying to warn me. Strangers were showing up at my door. And everyone wanted the same thing, except me. I didn't even know what I was being pulled into. I tried to piece together the fragments again. The two figures. The box. My father's warning. My sister's fear. The unknown number's threats. Everything pointed to a secret that didn't stay hidden any longer. Just then my phone buzzed one more time. I expected another threat. Another warning. Another shadowy clue. But instead it was a new number, a third number I had never seen. And the message wasn't angry or threatening. It was calm. Direct. Almost too confident. It said, "You're not supposed to know what's yours." I stared at those words, my chest tightening with confusion. What's mine? What had been taken from me? What had been hidden in a box all these years? My mind raced through old memories, birthdays, family fights, strange silences, trying to find any hint, any clue. Then another message followed. "Your sister opened the box tonight." My heart skipped. She opened it? After all these years? After being told not to? After sending me warnings? The realization slammed into me. If she opened the box, Then she finally knew the truth. And that meant everyone else knew she knew. Then one more message came through, this time from her number again. I opened it, praying she was safe, praying she finally decided to tell me everything. But the message was short, desperate, the most alarming one yet. They're coming for me. When I stepped forward, the weight in my chest felt heavier than ever. The room seemed smaller, almost shrinking around the truth that was finally ready to break free. My sister stood there staring at me, her eyes wide and her breath sharp, as if she already knew that everything she had built, every lie she had told, every secret she had kept, was about to collapse. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't cold. It was trembling. Alive. Dangerous. I took a breath, steady but shaking inside, and told her everything. How I had struggled, failed, learned, built, and rebuilt myself again and again. How I had started with nothing except determination and the memory of the day she posted, finally living my best life, right after I left home. How that post had burned something inside me, not hate, not jealousy, but a sharp kind of motivation that refused to let me give up. I explained how I worked night shifts, how I saved every rupee and dollar, how I turned one tiny opportunity into the company that changed everything. How I became the millionaire she never thought I could be. And how, through all of it, I kept wondering if she had ever once thought of me in those 5 years. She didn't say anything at first. She just lowered herself into a chair and covered her face with her hands, like she was trying to hold something inside. The tension in the room felt like it was pulling the air out of my lungs. I watched her shoulders shake, and what I expected was anger or defensiveness or another excuse. But instead, she whispered, "I never posted that to hurt you." Her voice cracked, soft and uneven, and it caught me completely off guard. She lifted her head, and for the first time since I walked in, I saw the truth behind her eyes. She wasn't proud on the day she uploaded that picture. She was terrified. She admitted that she had lost her job the same week I left. She had been pretending everything was perfect because she didn't know how to tell anyone that she was falling apart. The post was just a mask, the same mask she had worn for years. She told me that after I left, our mother leaned heavily on her. Bills piled up, responsibilities stacked higher, and every time she looked at her phone and saw my silence, she wondered if she had driven me away or if she had failed as a sister. But pride kept her from reaching out. Fear kept her pretending. And slowly, pretending became her whole life. Listening to her, I felt the anger inside me start to shift. Not disappear, but change shape. I had imagined her celebrating my departure. I had imagined her living happily while I suffered. But that wasn't what happened. She wasn't thriving back then, she was drowning quietly in ways I never saw. Still, part of me couldn't ignore the damage the distance had caused. I told her how her silence had left me confused for years, how her fake confidence made me believe she didn't care, and how every photo she posted made me feel more disconnected from the family I once lived with. And as I spoke, something strange happened. She didn't defend herself. She didn't throw back blame. She just listened like someone finally ready to stop running. When she finally spoke again, she said something I didn't expect. "There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Her hands trembled as she reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope. It was old, with soft edges and a name written on the front. My name. She placed it on the table and pushed it toward me. I stared at it, confused, and asked what it was. She told me it was a letter from our father, written before he left us. A letter she had found by accident and kept hidden because she thought the truth inside it would shatter me at a time when I was already breaking. My heart thumped hard as I opened the envelope. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting rushed. The words felt like they were shaking in my hands. In the letter, my father confessed mistakes he had made, regrets he carried, and a promise he never delivered. But then I reached the last paragraph and my breath caught. He wrote that he believed in me more than I ever knew, that he thought I would become something big one day, that he wished he had been strong enough to stay and guide me, that he hoped, no matter what, I would never let the world convince me that I was less than capable of greatness. Reading those words, I felt years of bruises on my heart shift. Not heal instantly, but loosen. For the first time, I realized the strength I had built wasn't by accident. It wasn't just survival. It was something he saw in me before I saw it in myself. And knowing that didn't fix everything, but it opened a space inside me I didn't know I still had. I looked at my sister and she wasn't hiding anymore. She was raw, vulnerable, human in a way I had never seen. She told me she was sorry, for the letter, for the distance, for the silence, for pretending she was okay when she wasn't. She said she was proud of me not because I was successful, but because I came back home even when she didn't deserve it. I didn't know what to say. For so long, I had imagined this moment completely differently, Me standing victorious, her shocked, maybe regretful, maybe jealous. But none of that mattered now. We were two people with too many scars to count, trying to figure out how to rebuild something we had almost let die. Just when I thought the moment had reached its emotional peak, a knock sounded at the door. Firm. Unexpected. Both of us turned. My sister wiped her face, confused, and walked over. When she opened the door, her expression froze, and the color drained from her cheeks. Standing there was someone I never expected to see again. Someone who wasn't supposed to know I was back. Someone who could change everything, again. And in that instant, I realized the story wasn't over, far from it. When the door opened and we both saw who stood on the other side, everything inside me tightened for a moment. My sister's eyes widened, and the air in the room shifted so suddenly that I almost felt it in my chest. Standing there was our uncle, the one person who had disappeared from our lives just as quietly as our father did years ago. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes held the same softness I remembered from childhood. For a second, none of us spoke. It was like time froze and all three of us were afraid to breathe too loudly. My uncle stepped inside and closed the door gently, as if afraid anything louder would break whatever fragile balance existed in the room. He looked at me, then at the letter in my hand, and nodded like he already knew what was inside it. He said he had come because he heard I was back in town. Word travels fast in a place where everyone knows everyone, and even after all these years the news didn't take long to reach him. My sister asked him how he even found us, and he simply said he had never stopped keeping an eye on us from afar. He didn't want to interfere, but he wanted to make sure we were okay. We all sat down, and it was strange, almost too strange, to see the three of us in the same room after such a long time. My uncle took a breath and explained that the day our father left, he tried to convince him to stay, to work things out, to face the problems instead of running from them. But he couldn't stop him. He told us how our father had always carried guilt, how he never stopped caring even though he couldn't bring himself to come back. And then he said something that broke the last bit of anger still buried in me. He didn't leave because he didn't love you. He left because he didn't know how to be the man he wanted to be for you. My sister looked down, her fingers twisting nervously, and I could see the truth hit her as deeply as it hit me. For years, we had lived with this idea that our father had walked away without a second thought. Hearing the real reason didn't erase the pain, but it softened it in a way none of us expected. My uncle told us he had the chance to deliver that letter years ago but didn't want to interfere with our healing. He was afraid it would open wounds instead of closing them. So he waited. And in that strange, unexpected moment, I realized how many people carry their own quiet regrets, trying to protect others in ways that don't always make sense. The rest of the conversation flowed naturally even though the topics were heavy. We talked about the years we spent apart, the years we pretended everything was fine, the years we let distance grow between us without even realizing how dangerous silence can be. My sister admitted that she blamed herself for a long time, thinking the tension between us was her fault. I admitted that I blamed myself too, thinking maybe I shouldn't have left so abruptly. And for the first time in so many years we said things openly, honestly, without fear of hurting each other. As the conversation continued, something inside me began to settle. I had spent years trying to prove myself to the world, chasing success because I wanted to feel like I mattered. Becoming a millionaire wasn't about money, it was about convincing myself that leaving home hadn't been a mistake. But in that room, surrounded by pieces of my past I never expected to face again, I realized the truth. My real success wasn't in the business I built or the money in my account. It was in becoming someone who could return home without anger, someone who could forgive, someone who could listen without judgment. Someone who grew instead of hardening. My sister stood up and made tea, something so simple yet strangely comforting. Watching her move around the kitchen made me remember all the nights we sat together as kids, sharing worries that felt big back then but seem small now. When she handed me a cup, she said quietly, "Thank you for coming back." And even though she didn't say the rest out loud, I heard it. Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for not giving up on us. My uncle stayed for a while longer, sharing stories we had never heard, stories of our father before life became too heavy for him. Stories that made us see him as a human being instead of just a ghost from our childhood. When he finally stood to leave, he looked at me and said, "You did what many people never do. You turned pain into purpose. Be proud of that." And for the first time, I felt the weight of those words settle into me with real meaning. After he left, the house felt different, lighter, quieter, almost peaceful. My sister and I sat on the floor like we used to when we were younger. She told me how many times she wished she had reached out. I told her how many times I typed a message and deleted it. We both laughed softly, realizing how silly it was that fear had kept us apart more than anything else. As the evening settled in, we talked about the future, something we hadn't done together in so long. She told me she wanted to restart her life, maybe try again with a fresh mindset instead of pretending everything was perfect. I told her I wanted to be present, not just visit once in a while. I wanted to rebuild not because I owed it to the past but because I finally felt ready for it. We made a silent promise to each other to stop hiding behind pride, fear, or old wounds. By the time I stood to leave, the tension that once filled the room had turned into something softer, something hopeful. My sister walked me to the door, and for a long moment, we just stood there, facing each other like two people choosing a new beginning. She hugged me tightly, and I felt something inside me loosen, a knot I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air felt different, lighter, calmer. I realized this journey wasn't just about becoming successful or returning home as a millionaire. It was about understanding where I came from, accepting the complicated pieces of my family, and recognizing that healing doesn't always come with one big moment. Sometimes it comes in quiet conversations, unexpected truths, and the courage to forgive. Walking away that night, I knew the story was finally complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest. The past no longer felt like a burden, and the future no longer felt uncertain. I learned that success means nothing if you carry bitterness, and forgiveness means everything if you want peace. And as I looked back at the house one last time, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes the biggest journey isn't the one that takes you far away, it's the one that brings you back home.